Hey guys, this video is for week 1, unit 18 introduction for math. The first thing I want you to do is watch this Learn Zillion video. It says compare two decimals to the hundredths place using fraction models. So I'm going to make this big. We're going to watch a little bit of this together.
How do we know which decimal is larger? In this lesson, you will learn how to compare two decimals to the hundredths place by using fraction models. Let's take a minute to review place value. For this lesson, we'll be focusing on the place values to the right of the decimal point. Directly to the right of the decimal point is the tenths place. The tenths place indicates that the whole, 1, has been split into 10 pieces. A digit in this place indicates how many pieces of that size we have. So in this number, the 2 in the tenths place shows that we have 2 pieces of 1/10 size. To the right of the tenths place is the hundredths place. The hundredths place indicates that the same whole has been split into 100 pieces. So a digit in this place indicates how many pieces of that size we have. In this number, the 3 in the hundredths place shows that we have 3 pieces of 1/100th size. We read this number as 23 hundredths. Some decimals can be read using different denominators. Let's take 0.2 for example. One way to read this is 2/10 because it represents 2 out of 10. We can also think of this decimal as being out of 100. So instead of 10 parts, let's divide our picture into 100 parts. We can see that we now have 20 parts shaded in. This decimal is 20 hundredths, which is written as 0.20. So 2/10 and 20 hundredths are two ways to represent the same amount. Here we're comparing the decimal numbers 5/10 and 3/10. We can rewrite 5/10 as the fraction 5/10 and 3/10 as the fraction 3/10. Let's use fraction models to help us compare. Our denominator is 10, which means we'll have 10 parts. Our numerator is 5, so we'll shade in 5 parts to represent 5/10. On the right side, we'll shade in 3 parts to represent 3/10. Looking at our pictures, we can see that 5/10 is greater than 3/10.
Okay, that was just to kind of get your memory flowing from the last time we were together. If you give me a second, I'm going to readjust everything. Okay, so here is the math packet. If you want to open it up, this is week 1. So we're just going to get this first part out. It's paper clipped together. So this whole first paper clip is actually going to be week 1 for math. Like I said, we are doing unit 18 introduction. So if you want to pull that out of your paper clip, and I would advise you just keep everything together with the paper clip and push it off to the side. So we're going to kind of do this together. Montel and his brother Jermaine each order a small pizza. Montel eats 65 hundredths of his pizza. So I'm thinking this is probably Montel. And Jermaine eats 6/10 of his pizza. I think I'm going to label this one Jermaine. They draw models to show how much they eat. Shade the models to show the two decimal numbers. So if you look below the picture, you've got the decimal numbers right here. Okay. Place greater than, equal to, or less than in the circle to compare the two decimals. So you would read this as 65 hundredths, and you would read this as 6/10. Let's think about this as a fraction. So if you look at the picture above, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 slices of pizza. However, within 1/10 of that pizza, you have 10 additional smaller slices. So really, if you have 10 total slices with 10 parts in each small slice, then you have a total of 100 parts. Okay, and 65 of them he has eaten. So let's see. That's going to be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, and we can't shade an entire another section of this, but we do know that there are 10 slices right here, so we can shade in half of that, which would be 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which would be the larger line, so we're going to shade this part in. Okay. Okay, so that's Montel. So let's do Jermaine now. Let's shade in how much pizza Jermaine has eaten. He has eaten 6/10, so you would write that as a fraction. How many pieces do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And he has eaten 6 of those. Okay. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So which one is larger? Like the video said, 6/10 can be written 2 ways. It can be written this way, or you can also think of it out of 100 parts. So you could do 10 smaller slices within one slice. So an equivalent fraction to that would be out of 100 slices. And we already know how to do the math to find equivalent fractions. You would multiply the denominator, whatever you did to the denominator, to the numerator. So that could be times 10. So it's equivalent to 60/100ths. And we have already learned how to compare fractions. So as long as they have the same denominator, you can clearly compare them. So it looks like Montel ate more than Jermaine. Okay. All right, so let's look at number 2. Shade the models to show 3400ths and 4300ths. So with 3400ths, you would want, first of all, you need to know that there are 100 pieces total. So to write 3400ths as a fraction, look like this. And to write 4300ths as a fraction, 43 are shaded out of 100 total. So 10, 20, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34. I'm going to shade this in just a little bit better for you. Okay, so there's 3400ths. Now let's shade in 4300ths, okay? 10, 20, 30, 40, 41, 42, 43. Okay, give me a second. Let me finish shading this in just a little bit more clearly. So clearly you can see that 4300ths is actually greater. Complete the comparison placing greater than, less than, or equal to. So how you would read this is 3400ths is less than 4300ths. I love that it gives you a visual. You can clearly see that 4300ths is larger and 3400ths is smaller. Let's see here. Over there. I'd like to think of this as change as well, like money. This would, out of $1, this would be 34 cents. Out of $1, this would be 43 cents. Excuse me. Okay. Actually, let's skip around. Let's go ahead and do number 4, because number 4 is very similar to number 2. Okay. So number 4, it says shade the models to show 1400ths and 4/10. Okay, so I want you to think about what 1400ths would look like as a fraction and what 4/10 would look like as a fraction. And like I've told my class, if you can read the decimal, you can pretty much know the fraction. So 1400ths, that means my denominator is out of 100 and 14 are shaded. So it looks like it's more than likely going to be this picture right here that represents this one, okay? And so how you would say 4/10, okay? So there's 10 total pieces and 4 are shaded. So this is the model that's going to represent this one, okay? So I'm going to start shading in, okay? So 14, I have 100 total pieces. I'm going to shade in 14. There's 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Okay. And this means 4 out of 10. That means I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 total pieces, and I'm going to shade 4 of them in. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Give me a second to get this nice and dark for you. Okay, and I love that there's a visual there. You can clearly see that 1400ths is less than 4/10. I also like to have my class, because we've done this before, when you can turn it into a fraction, and then we have learned how to compare fractions. Right now, you're not able to do a comparison because the number one rule for the comparison with fractions is they must have the same denominator. So we can always change this denominator to make it equivalent. Okay, and how you would do that is you multiply by 10, you multiply by 10, so you would get 40/100ths. So 4/10 is equivalent to 40/100ths, and therefore we can clearly see that 40/100ths is greater. So it says, let's write a number sentence comparing 1400ths and 4/10. Okay, so we're going to say 1400ths, is it greater than, less than, or equal to 4/10? This is actually going to be less than 4/10. Okay. And then we are going to move on. Okay, so let's get started with number 3. A marble rolls 78/100ths meter. Okay, so let's write that as a fraction. 78/100ths meter. And a penny rolls 23/100ths meter. Write a number sentence using greater than, less than, or equal to compare the two distances. So clearly they have the same denominator, so we can see that that 78/100ths, so we're going to write that, is going to be greater than, less than, or equal to 23/100ths. 78/100ths is greater than, okay? Excuse me. And then it says, use the number line to justify your answer. There is a Learn Zillion video that we have posted that helps you compare decimals with a number line. I'm going to kind of give you an idea of how to do it here. So looking at this number line, we have 0 to 1. So we're looking at things with a denominator of 100. So let's consider this number line out of 100 parts. So with 1 being the total of 100, okay? So how could we break this apart into, or partition it into smaller sections? Let's start with by tens, okay? And to help me make a number line, normally I like to do the halfway point first, like the benchmark, okay? So knowing that the benchmark would be 50/100ths, write that here. Okay. Let's write this. It'll be 10. And 10. You can label them if you think you would have enough room. Okay, I hope everyone can see that. I have it 10 hundredths, 20 hundredths, 30 hundredths, 40 hundredths, 50 hundredths. This would be 60 hundredths, 70 hundredths, 80 hundredths, 90 hundredths, and then 100 hundredths would be a whole, okay? All right. So we're going to label this and shade it in so that you can clearly see which one is greater. I'm going to try and use two different colors here so you can see the difference. I'm going to try to find two different colors. Let's see. All right, so we are going to label 23 hundredths. So where would 23 hundredths fall? So we've got 10 hundredths, 20 hundredths. Where would 23 fall? It would probably fall somewhere about here. And I'm going to shade in so you can clearly see. Okay, I'm going to use a different color now, and I'm going to shade in 78 hundredths. So 70 hundredths between 80 hundredths, it's going to be somewhere right there. Okay, so clearly you can see the blue is a greater value, is 78 hundredths, so we have justified it on the number line. All right, and let's move on to number 5. So number 5 says, draw a point on the number line for each of the following numbers. Label each number. Well, let's first look at how the number line is set up, because it looks like they've got us going so far. So we have 2 tenths, 3 tenths, 4 tenths, 5 tenths. Well, the video also explained that 2 tenths, another way you could write that would be out of 100. So you could have 2 tenths, but knowing that that equivalent fraction could be also out of 100. So it could also be written as 20 hundredths, okay? So we've got 3 tenths or 30 hundredths. We've got 4 tenths or 40 hundredths. We have 5 tenths or 50 hundredths. And helping us find that equivalent fraction, excuse me, is really going to help us understand all of these locations right here. So if this is 20 hundredths and this is 30 hundredths, you can infer that all these little points are a value of 1/100th, okay? So from 20 to 30. Okay, you've got 21 hundredths, 22 hundredths, 23 hundredths, 24 hundredths, 25 hundredths, 26 hundredths, 27 hundredths, 28 hundredths, 29 hundredths, 30 hundredths. There's not a lot of space to label every point on this number line, but I just want you to understand what each point represents, okay? So let's start with the smallest value, 26 hundredths. Where is that going to fall in here? Well, I just counted it out for you. If this is 20 hundredths and this is 30 hundredths, let's figure out the exact location. This is going to be 25 hundredths. So the one next to it right here is going to be 26 hundredths. Okay. So let's find the next one in order. This would be 34 hundredths. Okay. So again, if this is 30 hundredths and this is 40 hundredths, let's count each spot. Okay, so this would be 30 hundredths, this would be 31, 32 hundredths, 33 hundredths, 34 hundredths. That is going to go right here. Okay, let's do the next one in order. So we've got 42 hundredths. Again, this would be 40 hundredths. Okay, so between 40 and 50 hundredths is where I'm going to find that point. 40 hundredths, 41 hundredths, 42 hundredths is going to be written right here. Okay, and again, 48 hundredths is the largest of these numbers, and it's going to be really close to the 50 hundredths. Okay, so let's start with the 45 hundredths, 46 hundredths, 47 hundredths, 48 hundredths is going to be right there. Okay, and the good thing about this number line is that it clearly shows which is the smallest and which is the largest. Okay, which of these numbers is greater than 45 hundredths? Okay, so we've got to find 45 hundredths. It's going to be right here, and which of those is greater? So that's going to be anything to the right side, and it looks like 48 hundredths is the only one that's large. Okay. And then it says, which of these numbers is less than 3/10? Well, we know that 3/10 can also be written as 30 hundredths, okay? So something that is less than 30 hundredths. Well, let's find that up here because we've already kind of labeled it right here. 30 hundredths is right there. We're looking for anything less. So that is going to be anything to the left side of this, which it looks like 26 hundredths is less. All right, so if you were to flip it, you've got your words for the y's. This is where I would have you write these definitions in your math journal, which I know most of you don't have your math journal with you. I did want to clarify some of these definitions. This came from our last unit. It's a tenth. 1 of 10 equal parts, the first place to the right side of the decimal point. And then the hundredth, which this came from the previous lesson that we did together. The hundredth is 1 of 100 equal parts, the second place value to the right of the decimal point. So you really need to be thinking about your place value chart here. Okay, and there were 2 new terms that went with this unit. You do have the decimal number right here, okay? A number that uses a decimal point to show tenths, hundredths, and thousandths, which in 4th grade we are not going to learn about the thousandths, okay? So that is actually the decimal number, okay? All right, so then we have the decimal point. The dot, used to separate the ones place from the tenths place in a decimal number. And so this would be the decimal point. A lot of you just call it a dot, but the correct definition or the correct term would be a decimal point. We've got words like equal and equivalent. Those were from previous units that we've done. They have the same values, pretty much what it means. We have greater than, less than, alligator eats the largest number. I know you guys have been doing that for a while. And it says complete the graphic organizers to describe the terms in the shaded sections. So you have less than and greater than, and these are units that we have previously done. You're just going to apply them to decimal numbers. So let's see. Complete the graphic organizer to describe the terms in the shaded sections. Use decimal numbers for the examples. Okay. So let's think of an example of less than. You're going to put your example here. What is the symbol for less than? What is the symbol for greater than? And I do believe I have the cards with the definitions. If you, let's see, guys, go ahead and pull them out. Here's the definition for less than. It says a comparison of numbers when one is less than another. Okay, so you could write that part right here And then you have the definition of greater than. A greater than is a comparison when one number is more than another number, okay? And as far as the example, you can use any of the examples on the first side or the introduction side of this unit, or you can create your own, okay? And then it says journal. I want you to look at the journal portion as well. This is always my favorite part because it's really deep thinking. How can a dime be used to represent 1/10? Okay, so when you think about money, usually you have a whole number, which would represent your dollar amount, and then your change. Okay, so when you usually have change, it's out of 100, so you're going to have a tenths place value and a hundredths place value. Okay, so a dime, how would you write a dime? So let's say you had $5.10. How would you write that? And so you're going to use this information to complete your journal. To me, the only wrong answer is not even trying at all, which is no answer. Okay, you're going to continue to do this unit throughout this week, and just reach out to me if you have any questions. Let's see.